8 years later. 8 years later. One of the things that I realized today is that it's been 8 years since I discovered that there was a place called a Husky. There was a place called Winton. There was a place called Gates County. 8 years ago, this summer, I was a martial arts instructor in a very successful program. And even though I minister in prison, I just felt that I needed more. At that time, Ileana, my first wife, was struggling with cancer. And one day during the summer of, I would say, 2005, the summer of 2005, I received a phone call from Pastor Wallace. He had a Hispanic ministry, and they bought a building in Winton, and they needed a pastor. I wasn't the first choice. The first choice was actually the man that led me to Christ. And he said, no, I'm not the man, but I know who is. So that's how I got in the soup of everything. When I called to Pastor Wallace, I had this excitement in my spirit that I really, this is something that I needed to do. This is something that I wanted to do. But when I told Ileana, my first wife, she said, you were crazy. And she was right to say that I was crazy, because there she was struggling with cancer. We have 3 children. So I kind of left that alone. But the Lord ministered to her, and she understood that this was something that we needed to do. So July of 2005, I think it was the weekend after the 4th of July, we came to Winton, and as part of the interview process, I needed to preach a message to that congregation, the Spanish congregation. At the time, they already had the pastor they wanted, because about 6 or 7 pastors went through the process, and they fell in love with one particular pastor. So when Pastor Wallace told them, there's one more that you guys need to listen to, they were kind of discouraged, and we're ready for this one right here. Well, Pastor Wallace said, well, these are Puerto Rican. It didn't really go well. Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, I'm not part of that soup, but they don't get along. I discovered that when I came here. I just didn't know. So, you know, all the odds were against me, which is seems to be the story of my life. So I came and I preached a message out of John chapter 4. And when I finished ministering that message, every member of that church were in the altar. And we were in tears. And I remember that I went back home, and I needed to wait a few days to know what the decision was. And I was so excited. Just waiting. And I received a phone call from Pastor David Metz. And he called me, and he was one of the elders at the carpenter shop. And he said, Mr. Casiano, the church voted with an unanimous vote to have you be their pastor. And I felt the same thing that I feel right now. I just wept for a few minutes. Obviously, we needed to start the process of moving. I had a house in Jacksonville. I was going through this transition. And I remember that even before I moved officially here, I immediately started coming on the weekends just to preach to this congregation. I would go back to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is 600 miles away south of here. But as much as I hate driving, and my wife knows that, I will do that every weekend. Every weekend, until finally I move here. The excitement that I felt was unbelievable. I remember telling the Lord, Lord, if you take me out right now, I will die happy. The ministry, it was beautiful. I immediately started ministering in prison also. And it was just like a sweet dream, but in the midst of all that, I did have a wife that was struggling with cancer, and with prayer and fasting, the cancer was still not going anywhere. So 6 months after the excitement of being a pastor, Iliana, who at the time was my wife of 18 years, passed away right there in Coral. The hospital sent hospice, and she died peacefully. Our little apartment there in Coral, Gates County. And like I said, I just realized that in a few weeks it's going to be 8 years, and 8 represent a new beginning. 8 years later, I can tell you that I have gone through a lot. And a lot of the suffering that I have suffered, I caused that on my own. I went back to Jacksonville to marry somebody that I was not supposed to marry. I will not say nothing wrong about her. She wasn't a bad woman, it's just that it was not the right one. And I made that mistake. I was still not recovered from the death of my first wife, and here I was involved in a marriage, and then later on a divorce. My children have their own personal challenges in the process. And I found myself in a place where it's a dark place. It's a place where you are depressed and oppressed every day, where nothing gives you hope. For me, my children was the one that kept me going. And the Lord gave me enough strength to work. And I was such a good worker, because when I was at work, I did not want to think. So I did the work of 2 or 3 social workers, literally. I did not want to stop and think. And then after I was offered work, I would spend at least 2 hours in the gym, working out. But I was miserable. In the last 8 years, I have been face to face with death 4 times. 2 accidents that I had where there was nobody else involved with me. 2 of them in the Highway 13. One was a few days ago that I just passed out while I was riding. And one, I was very close to killing myself in Jacksonville, Florida. And one, I had a gun to my head as 2 guys were trying to rob me, but I didn't have nothing. But I wanted for them to shoot me. And that is a life, guys, a life without purpose. As a way of turning things around, that at 45 years old, I cannot even begin to understand the mercy and the faithfulness of our God. And it just hit me this morning, 8 years later. Here I am with a wonderful, beautiful wife. God has blessed me with 3 daughters. And we are on our way to Alaska. No Casianos there, no family there, but I am excited. Why? Because I have my family. You have your family with you. You have God on your side. We go to the end of the world. I'm not depressed anymore. These tears are tears of joy. I feel the presence of God in my life. Amen. So I go and on my way to Alaska 8 years later, and I don't know all the details, but I'm excited because I know that when I look the last 8 years. And you guys only know part because I cannot tell you everything. There are some things that my children will have to tell you when they want to tell you, if they want to tell you. But my wife knows the nightmare of the last 8 years. And I wish I can say I'm innocent, I deserve this, but I don't. I have a wife that I don't deserve. I have 3 more daughters that I don't deserve. I am like David. Failure, a sinful man. God is doing things. This was a training ground for us. A spiritual gym for us. And I am grateful for Pastor Sandy Outlaw, for Pastor Garcia, for each one of you guys that trusted me with this kind of ministry. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to finish with this. How many of you guys like the Rocky movies? I love the Rocky movies. And that Rocky movie, I think it was Rocky 5. Rocky Balboa is training a young fellow by the name of Tommy. I think it's Tommy Morrison. That was his name in real life. Training him, but all of a sudden the young man betrayed him, and make the long story short, right there in the street of Philadelphia, they got into a fist fight. And Rocky Balboa is getting his behind whooped like you won't believe. I mean, you don't have the same reflex, you know. Tommy hit him so hard that he just went down, and you know he was not going to get up. But you know what? At one point he did get up. And he said with his Italian accent, "Yo, Tommy! One more round." And that's what I say. Devil, one more round. Amen. Physically, I'm not in my prime. I'm just getting old. But spiritually, I tell you, I'm stronger than ever. Amen. I see things that I did not see before. I have the eye of an eagle. I see stuff. And it's just the beginning. And my heart is already broken for a few communities in Alaska. And I listen to that because when God is preparing you for a ministry, He will break your heart for that ministry. That's your qualification right there. And these are folks that I don't know. But I say, God, here I am. And I'm willing. I want to do it. I'm excited to do it. And I'm excited that I have a family there with me in that process. So guys, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being so faithful and coming here Sunday after Sunday. I don't know why. But you came. I am blessed. I am blessed by this little 3 p.m. ministry. And I'm going to leave it at that. I want everybody to stand.